Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrator's Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Mayo. Steve?
Hi, David. How are you?
Good. We survived another regular town meeting.
We did. We were both wrong, so we put the money into the pool and saved it for the next one. We both had too many nights.
By far.
By far.
By far. And joining us this month is Talat Aman. Talat is a senior at Wakefield High School. He has also, for the last 2 years, been the student commissioner on the Wakefield Human Rights Commission. And those of us on the commission have been very pleased to have him on there. But we're going to talk about this last summer. He spent 6 weeks in Morocco. And let's start off. Tell us how that trip came about, Talat.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. Last summer I spent 6 weeks in Morocco. I went on a State Department-sponsored trip where I received a scholarship to study Arabic in Morocco for 6 weeks. And the application process started about a year ago in November. And basically, I had to do an interview, had to get all my transcripts and essays in, and after 2 processes, I became a semifinalist and then a finalist. And June 21st, we went to Columbia University, where we did pre-departure orientation for 2 days, and then after that, we were bound for Morocco, where we studied Arabic in class 5 days a week. And on weekends, we went on trips sometimes. We went to the Sahara, we went to Tangier, we went to Casablanca, and it was a real cultural immersion, and I'm really lucky to have been able to be a part of it.
What did you get out of spending the 6 weeks in Morocco from a cultural point of view?
Yeah, so from a cultural point of view, we met so many people in Morocco. I stayed in a host family, or stayed with a host family, and from staying up late until like 2 a.m. So they eat dinner very late, but being with them at the dinner table and having conversations with them about their lives, their jobs, really different from how we live life in America, and being able to meet new people on the street, and learning from people that were really excited to see that we were speaking in Arabic was amazing as well, because something that we noticed was that when people saw that we were Americans and trying to learn their language, that was very exciting for them. From that, we were also able to meet with refugees in Morocco. We went to a UN center at one point, and had conversations there, did some activities. We also went to an orphanage and volunteered with a lot of children as well. So being able to talk to people and connect to them using the language was very powerful.
Where were these refugees in the camps coming from? Were they coming from Syria and Lebanon, or were they coming from south of Morocco, around Chad and some of the areas that have had some problems?
Yeah, so the latter. They were from mostly West Africa, and most of them, or all of them, spoke French, and they were learning Arabic at the moment. There were other centers that did have refugees from the Syrian areas, but we met with the West African refugees.
Did you speak Arabic before you went?
No. So
not at all. Okay.
No one on my trip spoke Arabic.
It's not an elective at Wakefield High yet?
No.
We're going to work on that, huh?
Not yet.
Okay, we're going to work on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just were totally immersed and didn't...
Yeah. And I think that was the beauty of it, knowing that every day we would be on the streets by ourselves. We were forced to talk to people because we had to get around, whether it be on a taxi or with a street vendor. And I think that was really crucial to us learning Arabic. We had a resident director who oversaw the entire program, but because we stayed with host families, we would be on our own within the city, and there wasn't that much supervision.
Was did the host family speak any English?
Yeah, so depending on which host family you stayed with, and there was a lot of diversity based on socioeconomic class. Some people stayed with host families that were well educated, usually wealthier, and they did speak English. Everyone in Morocco speaks French, or most people do. English isn't as widely spoken. My host family did not speak English. They only spoke Arabic, and some of them spoke a little bit of French. So, being able to talk to them was very hard at first because we didn't know any Arabic to start with. But gradually, it did get easier.
And a great way to be dumped into the deep end of the pool and have to learn.
Right.
I'm interested because you're very involved politically in the Young Democrats, both nationally and in Wakefield. And you went to a country that probably doesn't have as many freedoms as we do. How was that? Did you experience any of that? Did you have a chance to observe that? Or
Yeah. So going to Morocco, I think that we didn't really see too many limitations on freedoms. I think that overall the population was very receptive to Americans, especially. I think the most that does happen in regards to suppressing freedom is, as far as I can tell, you can't be openly gay. I think that's punishable. And for a lot of the women, they had trouble because they were often catcalled on the street.
okay,
But yeah, there weren't really any experiences for me as a foreigner, I guess, where I experienced that. But I'm sure for the people, it's a bit different.
so really in the catcalling on the streets, because I remember my college days having some of my female friends spend a time abroad in the Middle East, and it was the same then. I remember some in Egypt saying it was very much that. So that doesn't seem to have changed that much in the last 10 years since I graduated from college. No, it's been a little longer than that, unfortunately.
1 or 2 years.
1 or 2 years.
Yeah. But, and the other part of it is, given the controversial stances of America right now, did that in any way play a part in how you were, how people reacted to you when you were in Morocco?
Yeah, so I think Morocco is often, I think it's commonly regarded as a country that could be a sponsor of terrorism, or it could brew there, and I think it's a misconstrued conception. We heard a lot of rhetoric before going there, whether it be from family, from friends, and I think even from the State Department itself. They kind of prefaced the trip with advice that I think was outdated or not reflective of society itself in Morocco. And going there as an American, I had an amazing time because overall people were very receptive, and they really did like Americans. I don't know anyone on my trip, and I haven't experienced a negative experience in Morocco myself. A lot of the people that we talked to were young, and I guess in today's day of social media and communication and trends that I guess occur on the internet, America is also often, people look up to it, I guess, and they follow a lot of trends that are popular here. And
Social trends.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I didn't experience any thing negative because of being a foreigner.
Did the host family have questions about, what life was like in America, or, and how your experience is different from theirs, or?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely did. We talked about life in back home with our families a lot, because living with them, it was like we were with another family. I mean, literally and figuratively, because they were able to get so close to us. I mean, overall, I remember having discussions with my little host brother, who is 12 years old, and his sister was 6. So we talked about, I guess, school a lot, and differences there, and education. My host brother was also a diabetic, so we talked about healthcare system in the United States as compared to Morocco, and their healthcare system isn't nearly as advanced or caring of families like theirs. So we had some serious conversations there.
You know, you've mentioned a couple of times that a lot of people in Morocco speak Arabic as well as French.
Yeah.
And for some of our younger audience members out there, they may not remember that Morocco was for a long time a French colony
Yeah.
until the 1960s.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, French, it's regarded as the language of, I guess, money in
Mhm.
Morocco. Most of the business conducted in Morocco is through French. And for a lot of the French speakers or people that took French in high school on our trip, it was easy to get around because taxi drivers spoke French. A lot of things were written out in French.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that was very
Mhm.
convenient, yeah.
And
My-
did you speak any French?
No, I took Spanish.
You took Spanish. Well, I did.
One of the cities, one of the cities, Chefchaouen. You may have seen pictures of it before, but basically it's blue. Every building in the city is
okay,
blue.
yeah.
They spoke a lot of Spanish there, and I was able to
Yeah.
order some food items, but it was only on 1 weekend excursion, so
Yeah.
not too much. But
Were you the only student from Wakefield in the program?
yeah, I was the only student from New England in the program. There were kids from California, from Texas, from North Carolina, South Carolina. It was a really diverse group
Mm-hmm.
from around the country, yeah. We had someone from Germany, too, that had parents in the Foreign Service, and that's how they were able to apply.
Ah. How did you find this experience either enhanced or informed your family history and you know the experiences your family has had down to you?
My family history?
Yeah.
Like my parents?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that? I'm sorry.
Parents, grandparents, because originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, your family came from Syria,
From Bangladesh.
which is
Not the Middle East. It's next to India.
Bangladesh is.
ah,
in-
Yeah.
in-
Sorry.
Yeah.
that was my mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, but the culture there is so very, very different from the culture you experience. So you've had experiences through your life growing up.
Yeah.
Did you find any commonplace, any
Yeah.
commonalities, or was it so completely different?
From my culture at home, I mean, I speak, or my parents speak Bengali.
Yeah.
And they spoke Arabic, so that was different. But religion was, I think, very influential in
Mhm.
Moroccan society.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly in Bangladesh as well. And so there were some women that decided to wear the hijab,
Mm-hmm.
and there were mosques. That's very common. And people, would often take time from school and from work to pray
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think that there were a lot of differences in terms of food,
Mm-hmm.
manners, especially from the United States.
How did manners differ?
Overall, I think that people in Morocco were really formal and polite. They greet each other always using the same term, "Assalamu alaikum," which means peace, peace to you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of greetings and talking to people, people in Morocco are also very reserved, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we were told before we went on the trip was that gossip was big, but the thing is, when you had a problem with someone, you wouldn't say it directly to them. You would instead say it to someone else.
Interesting.
And that's how those conversations are brought
Doesn't
up.
that happen in Wakefield High too sometimes?
I think that happens.
It's good training for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Things haven't changed.
Yeah.
But also, I know in French society, if you don't know a person well, you use the form of you that is very formal versus the informal. You have to know someone very, very well to use the informal. Slightly less so in Germany, for instance.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that sort of French attitude towards formality has remained in Moroccan society.
Yeah, somewhat. One of the other things that I noticed was their attitude towards mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I know in France, before the system had it, that, for example, autism was a sign of a child having obedience problems instead of
Mhm.
it being a mental health issue, and so that's still very, it's prevalent in Moroccan society because we met a family that had a son with mental health issues, and the way that they were treating him in the hospital was
Yep.
very unfair, and in their family as well, because he was treated as someone that was a bad kid instead of someone with an issue.
So in some ways, like we were 60 plus years ago, how we treated people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
How did you find the differences between being inside the home with your host family and being out in the public in discussions, if you had any, regarding politics, the world order, religion, things that may be taboo outside? There may be taboo
Yeah.
outside here too, the way things are. But did you find a dynamic in that? You know.
Yeah, I mean, at home, so we had discussions. We didn't talk about politics or religion too much. My host family didn't pray as much, but I know a lot of other people in Morocco are religious.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that we didn't have that many conversations was because school would go from 7 a.m. to about 5 p.m., and by the time we came home, it could have been 10 to 11, and dinner was around 11, and then we would stay up a bit later until 2 a.m. sometimes.
And then be back at school at 7 a.m. the next day?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we didn't get that much sleep
Yeah.
in Morocco. But in terms of politics, one discussion that really is taboo is the Western Sahara, and Moroccans are. So Morocco claims that territory, the Western Sahara, and that's something that we really weren't able to talk about or bring up. And it depends on who you were talking to about religion and politics in general, I guess. A lot of the young people that I talked to, especially college-educated ones, that I met at cafes, for example, had a worldview in regards to politics and religion. I think similarly to how a lot of young people in my generation in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Do as well. They're often a lot less religious, and I met a lot of people that were either openly gay or really comfortable with people that aren't. Older people are, I think generally, even in America, more traditional. In Morocco especially so. But I know that Morocco has a history of being very open towards other religions, especially Judaism and Christianity in the past. So in Morocco wasn't as taboo.
So it sounds like the experience there was a lot more open and diverse than it would have been in in Saudi Arabia, perhaps, or something like
definitely,
that. Yeah.
Some of the more entrenched Arab regions.
Yeah.
I think overall Morocco, in terms of politics, that they're becoming more liberal, or like a liberal democracy. It's not necessarily because they do have a king still, but they're pretty progressive, and I think that as time carries and young people continue to kind of voice their power, that'll continue.
How has this experience this last summer changed you in any way or affected you?
Yeah, so originally before I went on the trip, I was thinking that I would possibly go into the Foreign Service. After going on the trip, however, and visiting the embassy, I realized that I want to work in government, whether it be as an attorney or in policy, but decided that I'm not interested in going to the Foreign Service as much. But being able to talk to so many other people, I've realized the power of language and the power of being able to connect with other people. Like I said, people that we met, whether they were store tenders or just people on the street, were really excited when they saw Americans, trying to speak Arabic, because they realized that, these were people that really cared about, I guess, their society and their culture, and making those connections has kind of empowered me, especially someone on the Human Rights Commission, knowing that we can connect to communities, especially colored communities that are marginalized often, and being able to have those conversations has really been important to me, especially because we were able to start so many in Arabic, even though it was, through broken Arabic. We've had some, again, like impactful conversations about politics and religion, and I don't think I would have had that experience elsewhere.
What do you think you'll take from this into your 4 years of college that are coming up?
Yeah, so in college I'm hoping to do similar study abroads, but also probably working with communities locally, possibly Syrian refugees or refugees that speak Arabic, and being able to learn or help others that have been kind of affected by the crises in the Middle East.
Which we very much need to do something about, sadly.
Absolutely.
Sadly, because it seems like we've spent 2 years with people demonizing Arabs and Muslims, and not recognizing them for the human beings that they are.
You speak about having meaningful conversations, and I've been blessed with coming in front of your group. I'd like to come again at the school with the Young Democrats, and we talked about, I think, tariffs, and we talked about, I really had to be on my game, go back to my old economic background. But something that we've talked about briefly about is something about changing the voting age and lowering it. I think we involve more people in meaningful conversations, and I've gone in my mind and I've thought a lot about this, and I told you before the program, I'd give you the vote. I don't care what your age is. I shouldn't say I'd give it to you. I'd support it. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
That concept. This is going to be your world longer than it is going to be ours. So.
I think in a society where less young people are voting and involved in politics, we need to do everything we can to empower them. But given that we have, the power of, again, social media and communication, and just the ability for young people to be so knowledgeable on topics that they probably wouldn't have been able to in the past, that anything we can to have them know that, government can work for them and that government is for them, is really important. And so I'm personally supportive of lowering the voting age to 16, because I know that there are a lot of 16-year-olds that are willing to vote based on facts, and I know that they would make the right decision. And I think that for a while, young people, again, have felt that their voices have been left out, but having that ability and the option to get involved at such a young age is important, because there are so many people that are 16 and 17 that are making an impact right now. High school Democrats and teenage Republicans, we spoke with our representatives, with our state senators, to pass H2016, the civic education bill, a few months ago. And Speaker DeLeo
Was just signed.
Just last Wednesday. And we skipped a day to lobby at the State House, and then around the country, people are advocating for gun control, and they're marching, they're protesting, they're lobbying at their state legislatures, and they've actually impacted the conversation, and they've, I think, led to a wave of new people, especially in 2018 midterms being elected, reflective of what they want. And I think they've been spearheading a lot of the change, not through legislation, and not through voting because they don't have the power, but they've definitely had an impact on it. So I think that voting is very important, and it's really powerful. But
is there a movement either nationally or locally, a formalized movement to lower the age?
Yeah, there are pockets of people that are in support of it. So I know, for example, Keith Ellison, who was just elected Attorney General of Minnesota, has spoken in favor of it. And there are people within the Democratic Party, the DNC, that have spoken in favor of it as well. But there hasn't been as large of a movement as say, for gun control or immigration. At least not yet.
Right. But it's interesting and amazing to hear how knowledgeable some of these young people are, and in similar ways to my age group who went against Vietnam and went to try and change things and basically petered out in the 80s. Hopefully your age group will pick it up and not peter out.
Yeah.
And keep the movement going so that change can happen, because change is definitely desperately needed. Desperately needed.
So what are you focusing on? You're in your senior year. What are you focusing on? You've got your senior year's almost half over.
Yeah, senior year, I mean, I'm working on, schools are really important for us, college applications. Right now, as vice chairman of High School Democrats, I'm working to really expand the organization. Since August, I created the state initiative, and we founded 300 chapters because of it since then across the country. And that kind of translates, 300 chapters at a school, that translates into 3,000 to 7,000 new members. And if we're registering, in Wakefield, we registered 60 people just last year to vote. And if we, did that nationally, that translates to at least 18,000 people being registered to vote. So making sure that people in high school that, have the tools to make an impact in their communities. And in legislation, whether it be the civic education bill or gun reform, and empowering them, educating them, and impacting that discussion. That's what I'm focused on.
I think the civic education bill is fabulous, because it is kind of teaching young people, and believe me, older people could use it too, how to fish, how to go in and work the system, and how to work within the system in a manner that creates collaboration and what have you. So I'm very hopeful for it. We've spoken about it at a couple of times, and I'm anxious to see the legislation that comes down on a curriculum basis, and what we can do that that are on the municipal government side to kind of get involved in this. So we'll be looking at that. I think it's fabulous,
and hopefully we can begin to talk on opposite sides and not with the vitriol that we hear day after day after day, but to come up with solutions that it won't be all of one side, it won't be all of the other, but it'll benefit the greatest number of people in the end. And that's the important thing, and that's when our system works the best.
In a fair and consistent and
absolutely,
manner, which is what we want.
So, Talat, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll see you at the next Human Rights Commission meeting.
See you then.
And a couple of points. First of all, 10 years ago, my hair was the same color as yours, so that's what happens when you're on the show for 10 years. And how good is your Arabic? I'll put you on the spot.
My Arabic? I think it's, so none of the people on the trip were, we weren't fluent because it was only 6 weeks.
Right.
We took an OPI test, which is an oral proficiency exam, basically. And I scored a level higher than the program was designed to be.
So can you say, Steve, you're a great town administrator in Arabic for me? Come on.
I don't think I can say that. No, we haven't learned the
How about Steve, you're great? You can say something.
What was, well, let's
No,
make
don't
it
stop him. I wanna get that.
we'll let him
Thank you,
close the
okay.
show with
I wanna know what he's
how
saying,
would
though.
you say, goodbye or good evening or whatever in Arabic, and we'll close the show on
Okay,
that.
I'll settle for that.
So goodbye would be Laila Saida.
Okay.
That's goodbye.
Lila Said.
And on that, we'll see you next month. Thank you for joining us.
See ya.
Thank you, Talat. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.